I know everyone has that one relative who looks like a celebrity, but no one I've met has ever looked so accurate that Pixar might owe them royalties. It all started during a cozy family dinner with my in-laws. I happened to glance over at my father-in-law and froze mid-bite. Wait a minute, isn't that Carl from Up? White hair sticking straight up, thick square glasses, a piercing gaze, like he was about to yell at someone for stepping on his lawn. It was uncanny. I couldn't resist pulling out my phone for a quick side-by-side check. And just like that, the entire table went silent. I didn't know whether to be alarmed or amused that my father-in-law could cosplay a cartoon character without even trying. Honestly, when I typed "old man in Up" into Google and the results popped up, I gawked. Carl Fredricksen, porcupine hair, oversized glasses, perpetually grumpy face, and those eyes that seemed to judge everything around him, was practically sitting across from me, casually picking up the last rib on his plate, completely unaware that he had just become the family's new visual phenomenon. I tilted my phone toward my wife, trying not to burst out laughing. She took one look and almost choked on her drink. "Oh my God, you're right," she whispered, covering her mouth. That's when I knew I wasn't overthinking it. This wasn't a kinda similar if you squint from the side resemblance. This was Pixar-level prophecy, like they'd predicted my in-laws before I even married into the family. The best part was my father-in-law's expression when I finally decided to bring the evidence into the open. Grinning ear to ear, I raised my phone with Carl's image next to his face, then snapped a picture. He turned to me with the exact expression of the animated character, half annoyed, half confused, and entirely unsure how to respond. "What are you up to now?" he asked in his usual gruff tone, like when he calls me over to fix the leaky faucet. I showed him the phone. He squinted at the screen, looked back at me, then at the phone again. It does look like me," he muttered, then went back to eating like nothing happened. In that moment, I knew I had discovered comedic gold. Not to tease him, but to spread the glorious truth. My father-in-law was the real-life version of Carl Fredricksen, no exaggeration needed. I'd been living with a cartoon legend all this time and hadn't realized it. But here's the strange part. The more I looked at him, the more I realized that it wasn't just his looks. His entire vibe was very up. That snapshot was just the beginning of a series of laugh-cry discoveries about this man, who turned out to have the spirit of a Pixar character hiding behind a perpetually serious face. After that dinner, the father-in-law versus Carl Fredricksen photo became legendary in our family group chat. My sister-in-law replied with a chain of laughing emojis. My mother-in-law with a blunt, "He's looked like that for years. Just now noticing?" The thing was, no one had ever truly seen it. Either they were too used to his face, or they never made the connection. But I couldn't unsee it. From that day on, every time I looked at him, I half expected him to start tying balloons to the roof. Not wanting this resemblance to go to waste, I decided to make a proper visual comparison. I printed out a large image of Carl, stern expression, gray suit, clutching a picture of his wife, and secretly stuck it to his refrigerator. The next morning, the family's reaction was priceless. My mother-in-law screamed from the kitchen, "Who put Grandpa on the fridge like this?" Then laughed when she looked closer. My father-in-law stood for a while, stared at it, then sighed like, "Again with this nonsense?" And that's when I knew I'd struck a meme goldmine. I made the first one, when you just want a quiet dinner but your son-in-law drags you onto Reddit. The second, father-in-law? Not me. Pixar, we know it's you. My friends went nuts, especially the ones who had met him. One commented, "I thought he starred in Up before retiring." Another asked seriously, "Are you sure he wasn't a model for Pixar?" From then on, every time he walked in wearing his dark-rimmed glasses and sweater vest, I felt like I was living in an undisclosed sequel to Up. At first, my wife rolled her eyes. "You're taking this too far." But even she cracked up when she saw the framed photo of her dad next to Carl, like two peas in a Pixar pod. But the funniest part? The more I posted the memes, the more people responded with, "OMG, my dad looks like Carl too." Turns out, my father-in-law wasn't alone. People started sending photos of their dads, grandpas, even uncles. Turns out everyone has a Carl. My post went viral, and I started wondering, if the looks matched this much, could the rest match too? And yes, they absolutely did. The resemblance wasn't skin deep. Beneath that quiet demeanor lived a true Carl Fredricksen, stubborn, sweet, and carrying a suitcase full of unspoken dreams. This was only the beginning. After discovering this Pixar truth, I started noticing more and more details about my father-in-law. Not only did he resemble Carl Fredricksen, but his entire world felt like Up. Imagine this. He lives in an old European-style house nestled in the heart of the city with ceiling-high bookshelves, warm golden table lamps, and a worn brown leather armchair parked right by the window. All that's missing are some exotic birds and a bouquet of balloons to lift the place into the sky. That house is where the stories begin. Every time I visit, I feel like I'm stepping into a bubble outside of time, a space where every object whispers a tale. He has a glass cabinet in the corner filled with keepsakes from his youth. A rusty old binocular, a film camera the size of a brick, and a compass with worn-out letters. I once asked, "Where did this come from?" He replied simply, "Back when I worked construction in Laos." And then silence, like he just revealed a secret chapter of his life. My wife used to say, "As a kid, I thought our house was a mini museum." She wasn't wrong. The air inside carries the scent of old books, wood, and a gentle stubbornness. Every item is preserved as if time itself couldn't touch it. His dining chair, no one is allowed to move it. His old radio, only for the 6 a.m. news. And the doormat, he dusts it himself every week, rain or shine. Like Carl, he keeps everything just the way it was, as if each item holds a memory, a moment frozen in amber. That's when it hit me. Like Carl, my father-in-law isn't just living in memories, he's keeping them alive. In this fast-changing world, he's a symbol of constancy, of enduring charm. I began to understand why he doesn't talk much, why he just observes quietly. He's living among stories we can't fully grasp, only feel through the care he gives to the little things. I used to think a man like him probably didn't dream anymore, but I was wrong. Just like Carl, he still dreams, quietly, not with balloons, but with patience, memory, and love for the little things in life. And I know, sooner or later, if I listen closely enough, I'll hear those stories. The tale of the real-life Carl is far from over. Ever since the Carl Fredricksen incident, every family gathering has been louder, funnier, and warmer. The center of attention? Always my father-in-law, even though he never tries to be funny. His stone-faced seriousness somehow makes everything funnier. Imagine an old man with wild white hair, thick glasses, grumbling while trying to open a soy sauce bottle that won't budge. Cue a 2-second freeze, then the whole family bursts out laughing. Carl's losing a fight with modern tech. But the peak came on his 70th birthday. My wife and I went big. We had a custom cake made, shaped like the flying house from Up. On the roof sat a miniature Carl. Except, we had the bakery secretly use a photo of my father-in-law's face for the figurine. That day, when he opened the box, everyone held their breath. He stared at the little model for a long while, then looked at me with a deadpan face and said, "Why not just print my ID card on it next time?" I nearly choked laughing. He sighed, then gave a rare smile, a real one. The kind of smile that feels like sunlight through dusty windows. He didn't smile often, but I could tell. He was happy. Not because of the cake, but because of the love behind all the silly effort from a son-in-law who couldn't stop seeing him through a Pixar lens. After that, the Carl persona became a fixture in the family. The grandkids started calling him Grandpa Carl. Some even thought it was his actual name. Once, while walking in the park, a stranger approached him. "Has anyone ever told you that you look like the guy from Up?" He nodded and replied, "I hear that a lot," before walking off, leaving the stranger stunned as if they'd just met a celebrity. The humor didn't just come from how he looked, but from how people began seeing him in a new light, as if he'd stepped off the screen, every movement frame-worthy. People say laughter is the best medicine, but for our family, having a Pixar dad-in-law might just be the magic that keeps us all connected, with every hearty laugh, charming little moment, and quiet, enduring love. And the more I laughed, the more I realized, beneath all the jokes, was a deeply emotional heart few had truly seen. This story isn't over. In fact, it's leading me somewhere far more profound, into the depths of love, memory, and the many things my father-in-law has never put into words. One autumn afternoon, I sat with him on his balcony. Steam curled from our tea, and he leaned back in his old wooden chair, holding a book with a worn spine. Neither of us said much. just the soft rustling of leaves and honey-colored sunlight falling across his silver hair. I hadn't planned to speak, but somehow I said, "You know, Dad, you really do remind me of Carl from Up, but I think you're even more than that." He looked over at me, and the story goes on.